You wake up in the morning, and for a brief moment, there is silence. The world has not yet demanded anything of you. No emails, no obligations, no memories rushing back, just silence. And then it starts. Thoughts, worries, the rhythm of repetition. You get up, you move through the day, and in some strange way, it feels like you have lived this moment before. Not yesterday, not last week, but many times, almost as if life itself is repeating a hidden script. Look around you. Humanity is advancing at an incredible speed. Technology expands, knowledge multiplies, and the possibilities of science stretch further than ever. Yet beneath the surface of progress, something ancient remains unchanged. The conflicts of today echo the conflicts of yesterday. The rise of powers mirrors the rise of empires long gone. Even in your personal life, the arguments, the fears, the doubts, the hopes, all of them seem to follow a pattern you cannot easily escape. Why is it that humanity, with all its brilliance, continues to repeat the same mistakes? Why is it that you, with all your intelligence and awareness, still find yourself walking in circles, facing the same challenges and replaying the same stories with different characters? This is the hidden cycle. It is the rhythm of history and the rhythm of your life. A loop that runs quietly, disguised as progress, but always leading back to where it began. And unless you recognize it, unless you learn to see it for what it is, you will keep repeating it. Humanity will keep repeating it. Think about the patterns you have noticed. Nations rise and fall, only to be replaced by others that follow the same path. Revolutions promise freedom, only to give birth to new forms of control. People dream of better worlds, yet often recreate the same systems they wanted to escape. And within you, the same process takes place. You leave one relationship, only to find yourself in another with familiar dynamics. You change jobs, yet encounter the same frustrations. You make resolutions, but the cycle of breaking them continues. At first, it may feel discouraging. To think that everything is just a repetition, a script written before you arrived. But the truth is deeper and more liberating. The cycle is not a punishment. It is a mirror. It is a message, waiting for you to understand it. Each repetition is not there to trap you, but to awaken you. You are not here to endlessly repeat. You are here to awaken within the cycle, to recognize it, and to rise above it. Humanity has always been given that choice. Some individuals glimpse it, a few civilizations touch it, and within you, this choice is being offered now. Pause for a moment and imagine history as a great wheel, turning again and again. Empires, systems, and generations come and go, but the wheel keeps moving. Most are carried by it without awareness. They are passengers of the cycle. But some realize that they are not merely passengers. They are participants. They can choose to step out of the unconscious repetition and create something new. This is the beginning of your journey. You are not listening to these words by accident. There is something inside you that knows the wheel has been turning and that you have been moving with it. And perhaps there is also something inside you that knows it is time to step out, to see clearly, and to live differently. The hidden cycle humanity keeps repeating is not just about war and peace, rise and fall. It is about the human mind, the collective, and the individual. It is about you. And once you see the pattern, once you recognize the mirror, the possibility of freedom opens before you. This first recognition is powerful. When you sense the repetition, you begin to notice details you had ignored. You realize how similar events are to past ones. You start to see how your thoughts lead to the same outcomes. You feel the weight of déjà vu in your own life, not as a mystery, but as a sign. A sign that you are standing at the doorway of awareness. And as you listen, let yourself wonder. Could it be that history repeats because humanity has not yet chosen to awaken fully? Could it be that your own struggles repeat because you have not yet seen the deeper lesson hidden within them? What if the cycle itself is the invitation? This is where the journey begins. With the courage to see repetition not as failure, but as a message. With the willingness to look into the hidden cycle and ask, what is it teaching me? What is it showing us? The moment you ask that question, you are no longer asleep in the loop. You are beginning to awaken. And awakening is the only way the cycle can be broken. The universal cycle. When you step back and observe history, not as isolated events, but as a continuous thread, you begin to see something astonishing. The rise and fall of nations, the creation and collapse of civilizations, the promises of revolutions and the disappointment that follows, all carry the same rhythm. It is almost as if humanity is caught in a dance with time, moving forward, yet always repeating the same steps. Think of the ancient empires. The glory of Egypt, the might of Rome, the brilliance of Greece, the dynasties of China. Each believed it was building something eternal, something that would last forever. Yet every single one of them fell. Not because they lacked intelligence or power, but because they entered the same cycle: expansion, triumph, corruption, decay, and collapse. And as they crumbled, new powers rose, only to follow the same path. You can see the same pattern in more recent history. Wars that were supposed to end all wars gave birth to even greater conflicts. Economic systems that promised equality often created new forms of inequality. Movements that rose with hope for freedom sometimes turned into structures of control. And in each case, humanity seemed surprised, as if it had never happened before, when in reality, it was the cycle unfolding once again. But it is not only nations and civilizations that repeat themselves. Look closer and you will see the same rhythm in your own life. How many times have you promised yourself that things would be different? That this time you would not repeat the old mistake? And yet, without even noticing, you return to the same thoughts, the same choices, the same outcomes. The cycle does not only belong to history, it belongs to you. This is the connection between the collective and the personal. Humanity's cycles are simply the magnified reflection of what happens inside each person. Fear, desire, ambition, hope. These forces shape nations because they first shape individuals. When enough individuals repeat the same inner patterns, entire societies mirror them. You may think of history as distant, but it is woven from the same fabric as your daily life. Why does this matter to you? Because until you see the connection, you may believe that history's cycle is separate from your own. You may think that wars, empires, and revolutions are just events in a textbook. But in reality, they are the echo of the same cycle that plays inside your mind. The fear of losing what you have, the hunger for more, the conflict between control and freedom, all of these are both personal and collective. Consider this: when you feel stuck in your own life, it is often because you are repeating a pattern that has not been resolved. The same argument, the same disappointment, the same dream followed by the same hesitation. And just as you repeat, humanity repeats. The cycle is universal because it is rooted in the nature of consciousness itself. At first, this realization may feel overwhelming. To see that history is not moving in a straight line, but in a circle. To see that your life is not only about progress, but about repetition. But in truth, this awareness is the beginning of power. Because once you recognize the cycle, you are no longer blind to it. You can begin to ask why it exists and how to step beyond it. Think again about the civilizations that rose and fell. They were not only stories of failure, they were also stories of learning. Each collapse carried a message. Each repetition carried an invitation. And the same is true for you. Every time you face the same struggle, every time life seems to repeat itself, it is not to punish you, but to show you what has not yet been understood. The universal cycle is not random. It has a rhythm, and within that rhythm is a lesson. Humanity has ignored it for centuries, and so the cycle continues. But you, in your own life, can choose differently. You can begin to see the pattern not as a curse, but as a map. A map showing you where you have been, what you have repeated, and where you have the power to change. This is the truth hidden beneath history. This is the truth hidden within you. The cycle is not endless unless you remain unconscious of it. The moment you awaken to its presence, the possibility of freedom begins. And that possibility is waiting for you now. The hidden mechanism of repetition. You may wonder why cycles repeat so faithfully. Why humanity, with all its intelligence, cannot seem to escape them. Why you, with all your awareness, still find yourself facing the same struggles. The answer lies in a hidden mechanism, one that operates quietly within the mind and within collective consciousness. Every thought you hold leaves an imprint. Every belief you accept shapes the way you perceive reality. And over time, these imprints accumulate, forming patterns. These patterns act like invisible blueprints, guiding your choices, your reactions, and even the way you interpret events. You think you are making new decisions, but often you are simply following the old script that has already been written inside you. This is how repetition works. You may enter a new relationship, but if your beliefs about love and trust remain unchanged, you will unconsciously recreate the same dynamics. You may start a new job, but if your inner program still carries the same fears of failure or lack of worth, you will find yourself trapped in the same frustrations. The outer form looks new, but the inner mechanism is the same. At the level of humanity, the same process unfolds. Civilizations rise with new ideas, but old fears and desires remain unexamined. The lust for power, the fear of scarcity, the urge to control, all of these continue to drive decisions. So even when a new system is created, it eventually mirrors the same flaws of the old one. The faces change, the structures change, but the underlying program repeats. You may ask, why does the mind cling to these patterns? The mind prefers familiarity even when it is painful. To the unconscious, repetition feels safe because it is known. Change feels dangerous because it is unknown. So the mind repeats what it already knows, convincing you that it is the only possible way. And unless you bring these unconscious patterns into awareness, you will continue to live them without realizing it. The hidden mechanism is not only psychological, it is also energetic. Thoughts carry energy. Emotions vibrate at specific frequencies. When you repeatedly think and feel in the same way, you create an energetic signature that attracts similar experiences. This is why life often feels like a mirror. The world reflects back the energy you emit. If you hold fear, you encounter situations that confirm it. If you hold doubt, you meet circumstances that strengthen it. This is the illusion of the new. You believe you are stepping into something different. But unless your inner frequency shifts, the new becomes only a repetition of the old in another form. The cycle continues, not because life is cruel, but because life faithfully reflects what you carry within. It is the same with humanity. Wars repeat because the collective still holds the frequency of division. Inequality repeats because fear and greed still dominate. Control repeats because trust has not yet been awakened on a mass scale. The outer events are the mirror of the inner state. Until the inner state changes, the cycle continues. This is not meant to discourage you. On the contrary, it is meant to empower you. Because once you see the mechanism, you realize it is not fate. It is not destiny carved in stone. It is simply the reflection of patterns and energies. And what can be repeated can also be changed. The first step is awareness. When you notice that the same argument, the same frustration, the same disappointment is repeating, pause. Ask yourself, what belief is fueling this? What energy am I carrying that invites this experience? What script am I unconsciously acting out? In that moment of awareness, the mechanism begins to lose its power. You are not trapped by history. You are not condemned to live the same story. The cycle exists because it has gone unexamined. Once you see it, you can choose differently. Once humanity sees it, it can choose differently. The mechanism of repetition may be hidden, but it is not invincible. It thrives in unconsciousness. It weakens under the light of awareness. And the more you learn to observe it in your life, the more you break free from its grip. This is the invitation of the hidden cycle. Not to fear it, but to understand it. Not to feel trapped by it, but to recognize that it is simply the mirror of unexamined thoughts and energies. The moment you begin to examine them, you open the door to freedom. The quantum element. Up until now, you have seen the cycle as psychological and historical. But there is another dimension to it, one that reaches deeper than culture, belief, or memory. It is the quantum dimension. And once you begin to see it, the hidden cycle takes on a new meaning. At the heart of quantum physics lies a mystery. Reality does not exist in one fixed form until it is observed. Instead, it exists as a field of possibilities. The famous double-slit experiment revealed this truth. Particles behave like waves, existing in many potential states, until the moment of observation collapses them into a single outcome. In simple terms, what you focus on determines what becomes real. Now consider what this means for your life. Every moment, infinite possibilities surround you. Infinite paths, infinite outcomes, infinite realities. Yet you do not experience all of them. You experience the one that aligns with your observation. And observation is not only about looking with your eyes. It is about what you believe, what you expect, and what you give your attention to. This is why cycles repeat. If you observe reality through the lens of fear, you collapse possibilities into experiences that confirm fear. If you observe through doubt, you collapse possibilities into experiences that confirm doubt. If humanity collectively observes reality through the lens of division and scarcity, then wars and struggles collapse into existence again and again. You are not merely a passive witness. You are an active participant in the unfolding of reality. Your consciousness interacts with the quantum field. it shapes which possibilities become actualized. And because the unconscious tends to observe through old patterns, the same outcomes are repeated. The cycle continues not because it must, but because observation keeps collapsing the same version of reality. Think of it this way. If you keep looking at life through the same window, you will keep seeing the same view. The world outside may hold many landscapes, but your chosen window limits what you experience. The hidden cycle is the result of humanity looking through the same window of perception, generation after generation. But what happens when you shift your observation? When you begin to focus on new beliefs, new expectations, new possibilities, the field responds. Reality begins to unfold differently. The cycle weakens. You step out of the old script because you are no longer observing through the same lens. This is not abstract. It is practical. Think of times in your life when you changed your perspective, even slightly, and suddenly your experience changed. Perhaps you chose to see a challenge as an opportunity and new doors opened. Perhaps you decided to believe in your worth and people began treating you differently. What changed? The field of possibilities was always there. What changed was your observation. The same principle applies to humanity. When enough people hold the vision of unity, the field begins to shift toward cooperation. When enough people hold the expectation of abundance, systems begin to move in that direction. The cycle is not unbreakable. It is the reflection of observation. Change the observation and the outcome changes. This is why awareness is so powerful. Awareness is the moment you realize that you are the observer, not just the observed. You are the one collapsing possibilities into form. And if you can observe differently, you can create differently. At first, this may sound too simple. Could it really be that your focus shapes reality? Could it really be that humanity has been repeating cycles because it keeps focusing on the same limited views? Yet this is what quantum science shows us. And when you connect it with your inner experience, you begin to see the truth of it. The quantum field is infinite. The cycle is not infinite. The cycle is simply one pattern within the field, repeated through unconscious observation. Once you awaken, you realize you are not bound to repeat. You can collapse new possibilities. You can choose to see differently, believe differently, and act differently. This is the power hidden within the cycle. The same energy that repeats also contains the doorway to freedom. Because the moment you shift your observation, the pattern breaks. The wheel no longer turns in the same way. A new path opens. And so the cycle, once seen as a prison, becomes a teacher. It shows you the cost of unconscious observation. It shows you the power of conscious observation. And it invites you to step into your role as creator, not merely as passenger of history. The inner reflection. You have seen how cycles repeat in history and how the quantum field responds to observation. But to truly understand the hidden cycle, you must look inward. Because the cycle you see in the world is not separate from the cycle within you. The outer is the mirror of the inner. Think of the emotions you experience again and again. Fear that rises in different situations but feels strangely familiar. Doubt that returns even when the circumstances change. Hope that rises, followed by disappointment that feels like déjà vu. These are not random. They are the repetition of inner patterns. And until you see them clearly, they will continue to shape your life. It is not enough to change the surface of your life. You can move to a new city, start a new career, or meet new people, but if your inner state remains the same, the cycle follows you. A different location, a different face, a different opportunity, yet the same result. Why? Because the inner pattern projects itself outward and the outer world reflects it back to you. Relationships make this clear. You may think that each new connection is fresh, but if your inner beliefs about love, trust, or worth remain unchanged, the same story unfolds. The names and faces change, but the emotions repeat. Conflict, insecurity, the same wounds reopened. It is not because life wants to hurt you. It is because life mirrors what is unresolved inside you. Work and ambition reveal the same truth. You may switch jobs, seek promotions, or chase new ventures. But if your inner script tells you that you are not enough, or that success must always come with struggle, the cycle plays again. Burnout, dissatisfaction, frustration. The external situation is different, but the internal reflection is the same. This is why self-awareness is so powerful. When you begin to observe your thoughts and emotions instead of being ruled by them, you start to see the cycle for what it is. You realize that the world is not against you. It is reflecting you. And every repeated experience is not a punishment but a mirror, showing you what needs to be healed, what needs to be transformed. You may ask, why does life work this way? Why does the inner create the outer? Because consciousness is the foundation of reality. What you hold within becomes the lens through which you perceive everything. And perception is not passive. Perception selects. Perception filters. Perception attracts. You cannot experience what you are not prepared to perceive. So the same beliefs, the same emotions, the same energies bring the same results. The hidden cycle is therefore not only collective or historical. It is deeply personal. It is the argument you replay, the habit you cannot break, the fear that lingers in the background. And once you see it this way, you stop blaming others or circumstances. You begin to understand that the cycle is inside you, and because it is inside you, you have the power to change it. Consider the times in your life when you felt stuck. Maybe it seemed as if the world was blocking you. But when you look closer, you realize it was the same doubt, the same hesitation, the same inner voice telling you a familiar story. That voice is the cycle. That hesitation is the reflection. And the moment you recognize it, you begin to loosen its grip. Awareness is the turning point. When you see the reflection clearly, you stop fighting the outer world and start transforming the inner world. You shift the energy, and the outer begins to shift in response. What once repeated endlessly starts to dissolve, because the mirror no longer finds the same image inside you. This is the secret hidden in plain sight. The world does not impose its cycle on you. The world reflects the cycle within you. And as long as the inner remains unconscious, the outer will keep repeating. But when you awaken, the mirror changes. And when the mirror changes, the cycle breaks. The awakening of consciousness. There comes a moment when the cycle is no longer invisible. You begin to notice it. You start to see how events repeat, how emotions resurface, how the same challenges circle back into your life. At first, this recognition can feel heavy, even discouraging. But it is also the beginning of awakening, because you cannot break free from what you do not see. Awareness is the first step. Awakening begins when you pause in the middle of repetition and ask, why does this feel so familiar? Why am I facing the same problem again? In that simple act of questioning, you create a space between yourself and the cycle. You are no longer lost in it. You are beginning to observe it. And the one who observes has power. You have lived much of your life on autopilot, repeating patterns without noticing. Humanity has done the same for centuries. But when you awaken, autopilot begins to lose control. You realize that thoughts are not commands. They are habits. Emotions are not destiny. They are signals. And situations are not prisons. They are mirrors. This shift changes everything. Awakening is not always dramatic. It does not always come with lightning or sudden revelation. Often it begins quietly. A discomfort, a restlessness, a sense that something is not right. You may not be able to explain it, but you feel it. The things that once satisfied you no longer do. The roles you once played no longer fit. The conversations you once enjoyed feel shallow. This discomfort is not a problem. It is the birth of awareness. You may try to resist it. You may try to go back to sleep, to fit into the old cycle again. But once you have seen, you cannot unsee. Once you have noticed the repetition, the illusion of progress without change, it lingers in your mind. You are being invited to wake up fully. When you awaken, you begin to notice patterns everywhere. You see how fear shapes choices. You see how desire fuels repetition. You see how history mirrors your own inner state. And instead of feeling trapped, you begin to feel empowered, because you realize the cycle is not eternal. It continues only as long as you remain unconscious. This is why presence is so powerful. When you are present, you are not lost in memory or projection. You are here, in this moment, fully aware. And in presence, the cycle loses its automatic grip, because the cycle feeds on unconsciousness. It feeds on reactions that you do not question. But when you bring awareness to the moment, you create a gap. And in that gap lies freedom. Imagine standing at the center of a spinning wheel. If you cling to the outer edge, the force throws you around endlessly. But when you step into the center, there is stillness. Awakening is stepping into the center. It does not mean life stops moving. It means you are no longer thrown around by the wheel. You can watch it, you can learn from it, and you can choose how to respond. This is the essence of consciousness. To realize that you are not the cycle itself. You are the awareness that sees the cycle. And when you see it clearly, you have already begun to rise above it. Do not underestimate this shift. Entire lifetimes can pass without awakening. Entire civilizations can rise and fall without ever seeing the pattern. But you right now have the opportunity to recognize it. That recognition alone sets you apart from the unconscious repetition of the past. Awakening does not mean the cycle disappears instantly. It means you are no longer blind to it. You may still feel old emotions, you may still encounter familiar challenges, but now you see them for what they are. You see the mirror, you see the script. And once you see, you can begin to change. This is the turning point of your journey. To awaken is to reclaim the power of choice. No longer carried by the unconscious loop, you begin to step into conscious creation. And from this point forward, everything can be different. Breaking the pattern. Awareness is the first step, but awareness alone is not enough. Once you recognize the cycle, you must choose to break it. This is where the journey becomes active, because cycles do not dissolve by themselves. They dissolve when you bring conscious choice into what was once unconscious repetition. Breaking the pattern begins with a simple but powerful decision. You no longer agree to live by the old script. You no longer allow fear, doubt, or inherited beliefs to dictate your path. This decision may feel subtle, but it carries immense energy. It is the moment you reclaim authorship of your life. To break a cycle, you must first identify it clearly. Ask yourself, what patterns keep repeating? What stories do I find myself telling again and again? What emotions return no matter where I go? Write them down, name them, bring them into the light. Because what you name, you can transform. What remains hidden continues to rule you. Once you see the pattern, question it. Ask yourself, is this belief true? Is this story mine, or did I inherit it from family, culture, or history? Is this emotion guiding me or trapping me? By questioning, you weaken the automatic power of the cycle. You remind yourself that not everything you think or feel is truth. Much of it is simply programming. The next step is redefinition. Every cycle is fueled by meaning. If you change the meaning, you change the cycle. For example, if failure has always meant defeat to you, redefine it as feedback. If rejection has always meant you are unworthy, redefine it as redirection. If struggle has always meant punishment, redefine it as growth. The outer event may not change immediately, but the inner meaning shifts, and with it, the energy of repetition begins to dissolve. Breaking the pattern also requires courage, because the unknown will always feel uncomfortable at first. You may be tempted to fall back into the familiar, even when it causes pain, simply because it feels safe. To break free, you must be willing to face the discomfort of new choices. You must step into conversations you once avoided, take actions you once feared, hold beliefs you once doubted. Courage is the bridge between awareness and transformation. On the collective level, the same principle applies. Humanity cannot break its cycles by repeating the same solutions with the same consciousness. New systems are not enough if the old fears remain. True change happens when beliefs shift, when meaning is redefined, when courage replaces fear. This is why revolutions often fail. They change the surface but not the consciousness beneath. And so the cycle repeats. You may notice resistance within yourself. A voice that says, "This is who I am. This is how it has always been. Nothing will change." That voice is the cycle defending itself. Do not fight it. Observe it. Recognize it as the echo of the old script. Then choose differently, even in small ways. Each new choice is like a crack in the wheel of repetition. Over time, those cracks break the cycle open. Breaking the pattern does not mean you will never feel fear, doubt, or pain again. It means you no longer let them rule you. They may arise, but you meet them with awareness and courage. You no longer run the same script unconsciously. You respond with new energy, and the mirror of life reflects it back to you. This is the essence of transformation. Not to escape challenges, but to meet them from a higher state of consciousness. Not to destroy the cycle, but to outgrow it. Once you break free internally, the outer begins to align with the new you. Remember, cycles are persistent, but they are not eternal. They exist only as long as they remain unquestioned. The moment you question, redefine, and choose courageously, the pattern begins to dissolve. And in its place, something new emerges. Not repetition, but evolution. You hold this power now, to see, to question, to redefine, to act. And with each conscious step, the hidden cycle loses its grip, and you step closer to true freedom, the journey of evolution. Once you begin to break the cycle, you step onto a new path. It is not the path of repetition, but the path of evolution. Evolution does not mean perfection. It does not mean that life suddenly becomes free of challenges. It means that you are no longer trapped in unconscious loops. You are moving forward in awareness, transforming each moment into an opportunity for growth. Think of the difference between repetition and evolution. Repetition is a circle, always returning to the same point. Evolution is a spiral, revisiting familiar themes but at a higher level of awareness. You may still face fear, but now you meet it with courage. You may still encounter failure, but now you interpret it as feedback. You may still feel pain, but now you allow it to teach you instead of breaking you. The experience looks similar, but the consciousness behind it is different. This is what makes your journey sacred. You are not here to erase challenges. You are here to meet them consciously, to grow through them, and to transform them into wisdom. Every time you do, you lift yourself above the old pattern. You move from repetition into evolution. At the collective level, the same principle applies. Humanity is not doomed to repeat its past forever. Each time awareness expands, each time more people awaken, the spiral lifts higher. Wars may still arise, but they are understood differently. Crises may still come, but they are met with greater wisdom. Slowly, humanity learns, and the hidden cycle weakens. Your role in this process is not small. Each time you break a personal cycle, you contribute to the collective evolution. Each time you choose awareness over reaction, courage over fear, creation over repetition, you add to the field of possibility for everyone. You may feel like one individual among billions, but your consciousness is part of the whole. The wave of evolution grows with every awakened choice. This journey of evolution is not about arriving at a final destination. It is about becoming more aware, more conscious, more aligned with truth in every step. It is about realizing that life itself is the teacher, and the cycle is only the lesson plan. Once you understand the lesson, you move forward. You may still feel the pull of the old pattern. The cycle may try to repeat itself, whispering in your thoughts, tempting you to fall back into familiar roles, but you are different now. You have seen the mirror. You have questioned the script. And once you awaken, the pull of the old can no longer hold you in the same way. Evolution requires trust. Trust that even when the path is uncertain, you are guided by awareness. Trust that even when the old cycle calls you back, you have the strength to choose differently. Trust that your inner shift is more powerful than any outer repetition. This trust is what keeps you walking forward, even when the spiral feels slow. Over time, you begin to notice a new rhythm. Life still brings challenges, but they no longer trap you. You meet them, learn from them, and rise above them. You begin to feel a sense of freedom, not because the world has changed completely, but because you have changed. The cycle loses its grip, and the spiral of evolution carries you higher. This is the destiny of humanity as well, to awaken, to learn, to evolve. To stop circling endlessly in unconscious repetition and begin walking the spiral of conscious growth. It may take time. It may take generations. But every individual who awakens contributes to the momentum, and you are part of that. The hidden cycle is no longer just a trap, it is the doorway. The moment you recognize it, question it, and break it, you step into the greater journey. The journey of becoming who you truly are. The journey of evolution. You have walked through the hidden cycle, from its presence in history, to its reflection in your own life, to the quantum field that reveals its true nature. You have seen how repetition is not just an external event, but an internal mirror. You have learned that the cycle continues only when it is unconscious, and that awakening is the key to freedom. Now, at the end of this journey, one truth becomes clear. You are not a prisoner of the cycle. You are the one who can choose to step beyond it. Imagine standing at the edge of history, looking back at the empires, the revolutions, the conflicts, and the dreams. All of them thought they were creating something new, yet most of them repeated what came before. Now imagine standing at the edge of your own life, looking back at the choices, the relationships, the victories, and the struggles. You too thought each chapter was completely new, but many of them were echoes of earlier chapters. The realization may be humbling, but it is also liberating because now you see. And once you see, you can no longer pretend. The cycle does not define you. It invites you. Every repetition is not a punishment, but a question. Will you remain unconscious, or will you awaken? Will you repeat, or will you evolve? This is the choice offered to humanity, and this is the choice offered to you. Breaking free does not mean leaving behind all challenges. It means meeting them with awareness. It means choosing differently when the old pattern calls you back. It means holding courage when fear whispers the familiar story. It means creating meaning instead of inheriting it. These choices may seem small, but they reshape the path before you. Look closely at your life right now. Where do you feel the echo of repetition? Where does the same story play again? Do not turn away from it. See it, name it, understand it. Then take a step the cycle does not expect. Say the word you once held back. Make the choice you once feared. Believe the truth you once doubted. That is how cycles break. Not through grand revolutions, but through conscious choices, one after another, until the wheel can no longer hold you. And as you break your cycles, you inspire others to break theirs. Awareness spreads. Courage multiplies. The field shifts. Humanity itself begins to loosen the grip of repetition. You may feel small in this vast world, but the truth is you are a key part of it. The shift you make in yourself is not separate from the shift of the whole. So here you stand, at the threshold. Behind you, the cycle repeats endlessly. Before you, the spiral of evolution raises. You can choose to remain in the loop, or you can choose to walk the spiral. The cycle is familiar, but the spiral is alive. It is uncertain, but it is filled with possibility, and that possibility is your birthright. The hidden cycle humanity keeps repeating is not your destiny. It is your teacher, and the lesson is simple. Wake up, see clearly. Choose consciously. Step into who you truly are. Because once you do, the repetition ends, and the journey of true freedom begins. If this message resonated with you, subscribe now to stay connected with the energy that awakens you. Like this video to anchor this frequency in your field. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a transmission that your spirit needs. And comment below, I am the frequency. Let the universe hear your voice. You're not here by chance. You're here to rise and remember who you truly are.